Sir, did you say a question again? If you, sir? Then I'm going to have to ask you to come make a complete and unified statement at the podium, and then we'll probably move along.
Mayor, members. Okay. I've smoked for 28 years, and I've found these e-cigarettes and these vaporizers through a recommendation from the 800 Quit Now people, which I believe is associated with the Health and Human Services Department. It's been very instrumental in helping me get away from cigarettes. I have not completed the test yet, but I'm working on it. I don't think at this point it's really about the argument of clean air or not clean air. It's more or less we're starting to feel bullied now. As a smoker, we were pretty much demonized in the mid to late 90s. No different than what prejudice other people have felt. And at this point, we're kind of jumping through hoops and trying to follow regulations put on us by governments and by activist groups. And at this point, I think we pretty much just feel that if we give in on this and say, okay, to heck with it, then we're caving to yet another activist group and we're being bullied. And we're pretty much tired. And that's pretty much what I wanted to say about it.
Thanks, sir. Ms. Farmer.
Perception here is that if we pass this ordinance, that it means that the people that use this cannot use it anywhere within the city. I think it needs to be clarified. We're only talking a few buildings and a few parks.
We're only talking a few buildings, but you're talking about classifying it as along with tobacco.
Yep.
And it is
And
not.
again, please do not yell from the seats. Okay? Ms. Farmer?
Am I going to start? Because I just started my...
Go ahead. We'll restart it and we'll get
want to
time.
quit at 3 minutes because that's how much time I have. First and foremost, thank you for hearing me, Mayor and Council, and the people who are here to fight this ordinance. I believe personally that ordinance is not appropriate. The e-cigarette products are the first real product that actually addresses every aspect of nicotine and cigarette addiction. Every aspect. Okay, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services is tasked with providing toxicological profiles for substances. They produced such a profile in 1997 for propylene glycol, which is used to produce the vapor associated with e-cigarettes. Since that time, they produced an addendum to that original report. I posted a link to that addendum if you're interested in reading it on Tahlequah Daily Press Facebook page. Read the link. At that time, they said propylene glycol is colorless, odorless liquid, which is generally recognized as safe by the Food and Drug Administration under 21 CFR section 184.1666 Park, if you want to look that up. For use as a direct food additive under the conditions prescribed. It's also approved by the U.S. FDA for the use in certain indirect food additives and in a very large number of cosmetics. If you're wearing makeup, ladies, you got it on. So, the reason I'm opposed to this is, you know, over the last 4 years I've come to you all demanding, begging, asking, you know, really striving to get something done about Spice and K2, products that we know are being sold as potpourri incense. We know they're not used as in their intended purpose, because if they were, it would still harm the kids in the house. We've been unable to get that done by this city, and I'm just appalled, frankly, because now we're considering this type of ordinance to prevent people from using vapes in parks. Now, the cigarettes, I understand. Secondhand smoke, extremely dangerous. Cigarettes are extremely dangerous. I'm all about that. I support what Val and Ms. Shope do. I understand that, and I work with them. However, I think this is money driven. Number one, if you're not buying cigarettes, the little stamp on the bottom, taxes from that money goes, guess where? Where does it go to? Come on, answer. Sean?
City, county.
Health organizations. Those health organizations are going to lose money when people stop smoking. The e-cigarette allows you to go from 16 milligrams of nicotine down to 0. I have 2 vapes sitting in my office. One has nicotine, one does not. I'm trying to quit smoking. It's a hell of a job. And I still haven't done it. It's extremely addictive. So whenever I want to try to, I'm in that motion of quit smoking, I can do the hand-to-mouth thing without weighing 300 pounds, because pretty soon you're going to find that a public nuisance. It's hard to just lay down a cigarette, just as hard as it is for a person to drop 50 pounds of weight. You can't do it overnight. So I support the healthy living and all that. But e-cigarettes provide that for people who are addicted to nicotine. What is wrong with them taking a vapor down to the city park, letting their kids play, sitting and enjoying that vapor when that's no harm to other people? So for that reason, I'm against it. If we're going to give up our civil liberties for a mere $8,000 a year, I have issue with that. My liberties are worth.
Just to clarify a couple of data points. Val, Carol, the excellent certification would actually get us another 42,000, is that correct? And when I say us, I want to make it clear. Well, apparently half the room's not interested in fact. We'd get 42,000 more dollars, but that money's not coming to the city this next year. Is that correct? You all have a different project in mind? Okay. I wanted to make that absolutely clear as well, that the city doesn't have a monetary consideration in this. So I just wanted to bring that fact to the front. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, my name is Sean Gore. I am the president and chairman of the Oklahoma Vapers Advocacy League in Oklahoma City. We formed about a year ago to help fight legislation against big tobacco at the Capitol last year, and we successfully killed 2 bills. I was writing down some notes on the ladies talking earlier. First, I want to start in that this is money. This really has nothing to do with health. As Ms. Farmer said, the excise tax on the bottom pack of cigarettes, the e-cigarette industry is projected to overtake the tobacco industry within the decade. If they are unregulated and not taxed, what happens to these 3 health organizations, lung, heart, cancer, they lose their funding. You had 50 years to find something. You didn't do it, you're fired. I've got an email. This is from a lobbyist. She was at the State Chamber Health Committee meeting. A comment was made by the health organization. We hope e-cigarettes are taxed as tobacco so healthcare can get the revenues. A liaison from the Tobacco Settlement Endowment Trust made the statement that there is a study that shows vapor from e-cigarettes is equally as harmful as secondhand smoke. That is false. I've got numerous studies. Nicotine, they're saying nicotine comes from tobacco. Not all nicotine comes from tobacco. I mean, that'd be kind of like saying that a banana or an apple comes from sugar cane. Not all sugar cane comes from sugar cane. You take the nightshade family of plants, vegetables, there's over 50 of them that you eat on a daily basis. They all contain nicotine. Clean air. They want to go with clean air. In all reality, it is nearly impossible to avoid nitrosamines, as they are produced during the consumption of many vegetables. In terms of secondhand vaping, a clean air stream study found that e-cigarettes do not produce detectable amounts of toxic substances in the air and are enclosed space, and that it would be more harmful to breathe air in a large city than in a room with someone who is vaping. Dr. Michael Siegel, Boston University School of Public Health. I can keep going. I've left a binder with you all. This has several studies. It's got about 16 studies. You have an IVEX clean air report, conclusions on it. Current study indicates that there are very low indoor air quality impacts from the use of electronic cigarette based on the risk screening of measured emissions. It also indicates no apparent risk to human health from e-cigarette emissions. Based on the compounds analyzed, the author recognizes future research assessing exposures to bystanders and users will be imperative for fully understanding the impacts from the electronic cigarette. There are a lot of studies out there. And as each study comes out, they're pointing more and more in favor of the e-cigarette. The chemicals admitted. I just read to you on the nitrosamine. The ladies wanted to know what flavors were added. Flavors are added because when you smoke, you can't breathe and you can't taste. As you quit smoking, your sense of taste and your sense of smell comes back.
Yeah.
You have the flavors. It's not to target minors because we're actually pushing for a bill right now to not allow anyone in the state who is under 18 years of age to purchase electronic cigarettes to nicotine or no nicotine, period. I run my own store, I'm not nice. So it is not to target minors. Forbes magazine, they just published an article 2 days ago. E-cigarettes have proven not to be a precursor to smoking. Buildings and parks belong to the people. I think we need to take that into consideration. They've showed up in mass here to show their opinion, and I think they need to be listened to as elected officials. I have my card. I've given it to all of you, the studies. If I can answer any questions, I'll be more than happy.
Councilor Weston?
I would just like to know your opinion on the perception of e-cigarettes versus cigarettes and children. With a child, I mean, how can you explain how a child might perceive the difference between an e-cigarette and a cigarette?
I think as a good parent, you bend over your knee and respect the Bible. Where does our responsibility start and where does it stop? You know, I mean, responsibility's got to start and stop somewhere, and I think in today's society, parenting has, you know, I'm a father. I mean, between my wife and I, we have 7 kids, and yeah, it's yes, ma'am in our house, and I think that you have to become an active parent in your child that's growing up. You know, it's so important, but this is not to target minors. There's nothing cool about it. This is a safer way for individuals or people who have smoked for years, including myself, to get away from tobacco. I mean, I rode bulls for 19 years. You know, I was judging a bull ride one time with a patch on my back, chewing Nicorette gum, puffing on the inhaler, chewing my cheek, and tipping my lip, smoking a cigarette. Something's not working. They introduced me to these. I had the electronic, the blues. They didn't work for me. They worked for some people. I got introduced to these, and 2.5 days later, and that's been over a year and a half, I have not touched one tobacco product since.
I'm really not saying that you guys are trying to target the youth. I am a child and parenting specialist. That's what I do for a living. So I do this. And that's one thing that I do have concerns with is that if we're in a park and you have someone that is smoking or using an e-cigarette, how is that going to be perceived by a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old? That's my
The
question.
same way the difference between a Dr. Pepper and a beer, that we have a city ordinance allowing that beer and alcohol on city property. The
I
same
know,
way
but I'm
you
just
tell
saying, if you see smoke coming out of somebody's cigarette, how is a 6-year-old going to understand?
And I want to say, you know, none of this has been labeled. Vapor has not been labeled as a smoke. We're talking to the state attorney general to keep that from happening right now. And as of right now, electronic cigarettes have not been labeled as a tobacco product. So, you know, I think we're putting the cart before the horse on this thing. Bottom line, this comes down to their funding. Where's it going to come from in the next 10 years, when the decade when everybody has switched from tobacco products to electronic cigarettes? And again, you have 50 years to come up with something and do something. But personally, I'm an employer. Any of you employers, or you're an employer, if you have somebody and they don't produce, and you're paying them good money to do something, they don't do it, what do? They're fired. This is about money. This has nothing to do about health, about saving their job. You know, and it wouldn't bother me so much as if they just said, in this email. You know, so we can get the revenues. You know, at least you're honest. Quit saying it's about health when it's not. It's not about cleaning. We've already proven that.
I think to some people it is about clean air.
Well, let's also try to avoid ascribing motive to anyone. I'm going to take your word that it is about health, because I think, and I'm going to make both sides of the room mad. No, sir, excuse me for just one moment. I can make both sides of this equation mad by saying we can own this. There's no doubt it's about money on the public side of things. But it's about your sales as well. And so that argument can be turned both ways. So let's not ascribe motive.
All due respect to the ladies over here, and I'm sure that this comes not from them. This comes from the health of cancer and birth. They're just doing what they're told. So it is not directed at them. As far as my sales of my e-cigarette stores, I don't take distributions. I have an environmental consulting company. All the money that's made from my store goes back to increase our inventory and to open up new stores to help people get away from tobacco products.
Well, then you're about help too, and that would be a lot of it.